In this video, I'm going to show how to replace the tie rod adjusting sleeve, but this is for the lower or outer tie rods on this Ford F-350. It goes from the passenger side wheel to the driver's side wheel and of course hooks on both outer tie rods together to adjust tow. You will need an alignment after this job is done. Let's get started. With the truck safely raised and supported, let's remove the wheel. Some wheels may have a center cap like this one, others might not. If yours does, all you need is a little pry bar or screwdriver to pop it out. It should have a cutout, so just look around to find it and pry it right off. That'll expose all 8 21mm lug nuts. So with a 21mm socket, remove them all. Now remove the wheel and set it aside. To replace this adjusting sleeve much easier, I like to remove the driver's side outer tie rod, and this makes it so that once I remove this, I'm only overcoming the friction of those threads. A lot of times these get seized on here and they're just hard to turn. Plus, if you were to turn it like this, you'd have to turn it until you expand both wheels out and then try to fight it to go back in. So I'm just going to remove the outer tie rod for this and then remove the sleeve, and then of course reverse to put it all back together. Let's remove the cotter pin from the outer tie rod. I'm just going to use some cutters so I can grab onto this and straighten it out. Now, even though this one looks like it's in good shape, it looks fairly new, I'm not going to reuse it. You want to take these out, discard them, and always use a new cotter pin when reinstalling. Use a 21mm socket and remove the mounting nut. Leave it on just a few threads so that when we tap this to break it free from the knuckle, it doesn't fall off. This will hold it on. And now take a hammer, tap the knuckle right here to separate these two. There we go. Support the tie rod, remove the mounting nut, and remove the tie rod from the knuckle. Follow the tie rod to where it goes on to the sleeve, and you'll see that the sleeve is clamped on with this clamp, which has a 15mm mounting nut on the end. You don't need to hold the bolt side because it's a cage bolt. It will sit right in here. So take a 15mm socket and loosen this up. I'm going to spray this with a little bit of rust penetrant just all around. I want to make sure that this sleeve can move, because the next step will be to actually push it back or tap it back with a hammer so it can let go of this area a little bit more. I have a bungee cord here supporting the tie rod. I'm just going to move it out of the way. And now with that clear, we're going to take a hammer and punch this backwards so that it can let go of the pressure it's applying right over here. Okay, so now you'll notice that on two sides of the sleeve there will be a split. For me, it's right here and right here. Putting a chisel or a pry bar right in this split, of course not where the threads are, but further in, is going to spread this and allow the tie rod to come off a whole lot easier. So let's do that next. A lot of times this is full of debris, so you have to chisel it. And there we go. After you move it around a little bit, add some more rust penetrant if needed. Now you want to turn this counterclockwise and remove it from the sleeve, but you want to count the amount of turns it takes to remove it so that when we put it back, you put it back the same amount of turns. You will still need an alignment after this, but this will get you close to what the alignment was. "22 turns for me. It will be different for you, but there's the outer tie rod removed from the inner sleeve. Now we can take our pry bar out and move to the other end of this sleeve. On this side, you'll notice two clamps, one on the outer tie rod and one on the sleeve. We only need to remove the one that's on the sleeve because this one is just here to lock things in. This one will be moved inward and will no longer be in contact with this, so we don't need to worry about it. Therefore, 15mm socket on this, loosen it up and punch it in. Same deal over here. Let's put a pry bar or chisel in here. That spins easily. Now spin this around, count the amount of turns it takes to remove it, so when we put it back, we put it on the same amount of turns. One thing here is to keep in mind that this is reverse threaded on the passenger side, so you're going to want to spin it clockwise if you're looking at it from this direction to loosen it. I'm actually going to remove my pry bar since I don't need it and it's going to get in the way. But if you do need it and it gets in the way, just pull the tie rod sleeve further out so it doesn't hit other components. Whatever number of turns you had, remember it or write it down, and there's the sleeve. This outer tie rod has good threads because it's fairly new. If yours didn't, use a wire wheel on a drill to clean these up, or a wire brush, whatever you have to get the threads nice and clean, and then put some anti-seize or a little bit of grease on them to prevent them from rusting and seizing in the future. I sprayed anti-seize on the sleeve as well. Take your sleeve and thread it on the same amount of turns it took to remove the old one. Once you're sure it's on the amount of turns that you had before, slide the sleeve over and make sure it lines up with this one over here so that everything can lock in, and just bottom it out up against this little lock ring, snap ring right here. Take your 15mm socket, snug this up. We'll torque this to 41 foot-pounds. That's it right there. Put some anti-seize on the threads of this outer tie rod that goes on the driver's side as well. Now take this driver's side tie rod and thread it in to the sleeve, the same amount of turns it took to remove it. And just as a note, it needs to match the passenger side so that they can be clocked together. Right about here is where I want it. So bring this sleeve over, make sure it lines up with this. However, I'm not going to lock this in until we put the end of the tie rod into the knuckle so that it can be positioned properly. That way the joints on each side aren't at a severe angle. Take your tie rod and slide it right through the knuckle. There we go. Put the nut on it. Use a 21mm socket to tighten it up. Torque this to 85 foot-pounds. That's it right there, but this being a castle nut, we have to make sure that the slot lines up. For me, it's actually above the castle nut. That's fine, that happens sometimes. If yours is not, continue tightening until it lines up. You never want to loosen these, no matter how close it is. My tie rod came with one of these little caps, which is going to help line up the cotter pin slot better since the nut is below it. Put your cotter pin through and bend it over to lock it in. And now back to this sleeve. Make sure the tie rods are positioned evenly and they're not at a severe angle. Make sure this is lined up. Get that 15mm socket on here and tighten this down. 41 foot-pounds for this mounting nut. Let's get the wheel on. Install all 8 lug nuts. We'll bottom them out in a cross pattern to seat the wheel evenly, and then also in a cross pattern, we'll torque them to 165 foot-pounds. Once again, 165 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Here we go. Double check them if you want. I'm sure that mine are tight. So now, because I had this cover, I'm going to put this back on, line it up, if yours had it, with the lug nuts, and then tap it on. Job is done. Don't forget to get in alignment.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.